Hey guys, thanks for watching my video today on our smart electric drive. We've owned this car for a couple of months now, have put just over 1,000 miles on it, and I wanted to give you your first long-term update of what it's like to live with a short-range electric vehicle. What do I mean by this? Well, this car comes from an era of electric cars that have a limited amount of full electric range. I'm talking like the first gen Nissan Leaf, the Fiat 500e. These all had ranges of about 80 miles or so when they were brand new. This smart car had a full electric range of 68 miles when it was brand new. And I say full electric range, of course, because this car requires no gasoline. It's purely an EV, and when the battery dies, the battery's dead. You're gonna need a tow truck or a super long extension cord. But even with an EPA rated range of 68 miles over the last couple months of driving this car furiously, I've never found that the range has been an issue. Let me tell you about it. Now, first of all, we'll go around the front. We bought this car for $7,000, and you can find these first generation smart electric drives for between like 5 and 7.5 for a really low mileage example. These came out in 2013. This one is a 2015 model. It has 17,000 miles or so, and it's been brilliant. They're really a ton of fun to drive, a ton of fun to operate. Now, one thing I'll say about these cars that I've learned is color is a pretty interesting factor. If you get a silver or like the light blue one, you're probably not going to get noticed all that much. If you get a bright yellow one, everybody looks at you, everybody wants to know what the heck is that weird yellow lemon going down the road. You have to talk to them, but it's been a lot of fun because I've had some cool conversations with people talking about what it's like to live with an electric car, talking about what it's like to live with such a tiny car, and interestingly enough, the girls really dig the smart electric drive. You know, part of the cool perks of the job is I sometimes get to drive cool cars like Mustang GTs and Challenger 392s. Most girls don't care about any of those, but you drive around town in a bright yellow electric lemon and people go crazy about it. So that's been a fun thing to learn. It's a very small car, obviously. It's a city car, and it's been great in the city. I drive typically 10 to 15 miles a day, which means this car never really goes below like 75% battery, 80% battery on any given day, and the range has been perfect for that. Like, genuinely. I've actually, yesterday I had to drive this 47 miles out of the city and back, and even with 47 miles driven, I still had over 30% charge when I got home. The car said I could go another 23 miles, which puts me above the EPA rating of 68 miles of total range. And I should say, I don't drive this car like a grandma. It's super fun to drive because it's zippy, so I'm always in the throttle. I like zipping in and out of traffic when it's safe to do so. It's a fun car to drive quick, so I don't granny it, and it will still consistently go more than 68 miles, which is what it's supposed to go. The interior is interesting because even though the car is just minuscule, tons of room. I am 6'1" tall in both the driver and the passenger seats. Plenty of headroom, tons of legroom. And the cool thing is, there's only one armrest because it's really narrow, but this passenger seat is set further back, which means that you never are fighting for elbow room with your driver. I learned that one pretty quickly. Air conditioner, it works. It's not super cold. Maybe this one needs a little bit of a recharge, but I think that it's just how it was from the factory compared to like an American car. The air conditioning system's a little underwhelming. The glass roof is pretty cool. Actually, it's plexiglass, but you can open it up, let the sunshine in. The shade blocks some of the light. This is a little saggy. We looked at replacing this. This is a $400 part from Smart. And that's because, of course, Smart is a brand owned by Mercedes, and you end up paying some Mercedes prices. But the great news about the Smart is there's not a whole lot to break if you get the electric drive version. So in the back here, there's no gasoline engine underneath this rear tray. Rather, there's just an electric motor underneath the battery. That's it. There's just a few moving parts in the entire drivetrain. The gas version of this, kind of a disaster in terms of drivability because they had this automated manual, which not great. In fact, I drove one yesterday, a gas version of this. It was a 2009, I believe. I was looking at buying one because I like the electric one so much, and it was interesting. It was a pure with no power windows, no power mirrors, no air conditioning, but heated seats. It was a weird spec. And compared to the gas one, the electric one is so much more fun in every way because that one had this horrible transmission. Direct drive transmission. Other thing I learned, you can fit a fudge ton of stuff in the back of a smart car if you remove the little parcel tray, which just comes out like this. I've had many a pallet of like Coke even back here, and Pepsi. It holds really a lot of stuff. Of course, just a two-seater, but if you're committed to actually carrying all your groceries home in the Smart, you're not going to have any issues. We use it a lot actually, which is why it's looking a little dirty. It needs a good cleaning back here and inside and out. Now, charging is interesting. Modern day Teslas will charge up to like 250 kilowatts, which is a massive amount of power. The Smart car will charge up to 3.3 kilowatts, which is a small amount of charge speed. But even at 3 kilowatts, you can completely drain this battery overnight. And if you let it sit for like 10 hours while you're sleeping, while you're going about your night business, you'll wake up in the morning and the car will almost always be charged. And that's great even on a 110 outlet. So we have a large 240 volt outlet installed at the office here. Almost never use it. I just plug it in at home into a standard outlet like you'd plug your phone into, and in the morning it's full of battery. This is where you plug it in. Just pop that open and off you go. One thing I hate, let me show you around the driver's side. Someone put an aftermarket head unit in this car, and it's one of those that doesn't actually have any buttons or knobs. So rather than having a volume knob, it's got these little push buttons. Horrible, just terrible. That one will probably need to be replaced, but overall, it's brilliant. We installed the Steinbauer power module on here, which makes it feel quite a bit more zippy. It's like an electric cartoon. I've got a video over at TFL Car if you want to check that one out. But I cannot recommend these first generation Smart electric drives enough in terms of what to look for when you're buying them. Really not a whole lot, if I'm being honest. There's not a lot to break. Just make sure every button works. The lower the mileage, the better. If you recall, the early Leafs had an air-cooled battery. Those, as they start to age, have had huge amounts of battery degradation. So what once may have been an 80-mile battery is now closer to like a 60 or 65 on some of those cars. That's because those batteries were air-cooled, and in hot climates, hot temperatures, they lost their life. They also had fast charging. That frequent fast charging will kill the battery faster. The Smart liquid-cooled battery, no fast charging. So these are pretty easy to shop for. And honestly, if you're not traveling out of the city for your commute all that often, I'd say if you've got a commute of under 50 miles there and back, you'll be able to comfortably do that in the Smart, even have the chance to go out for lunch probably. Competitors to this car are also brilliant. The 500e is supposed to be a really fun car. My dad's driven a bunch of them. I've never driven one. I'd love to. Spark EV, that one with 400 pound-feet of torque. All of these early cars are dirt cheap now because they just depreciated like crazy, but they can all be really fun to drive, especially the Smart in my opinion because it is rear-wheel drive. It's great having 400 pound-feet of torque in the Chevy, but when you hit that throttle, it's just going to tear the front wheels out. This one is pretty controllable. Yesterday, someone tried to do an illegal passing maneuver on me in a Tundra, which freaked a bunch of people around me out. They all hit their brakes, and I was going to get in an accident, but I had a chance, just like a small shot, to zip through. So I floored it in the Smart, and it was so quick that I was able to sneak through this dangerous situation. So a lot of airbags in these. If you do get in an accident, they have like 8 airbags, but really fun to drive. Quicker from 0 to 40, and I do mean this, than the vast majority of cars on the road. Even things like Miatas, brand new Miatas, V6 Mustangs, I can easily out-accelerate any of them from a stoplight, even if they're trying really hard, because instant torque, rear-wheel drive, no traction loss, off you go. Interior space is good, comfort, it's got a really hard ride. That's important to keep in mind. I wouldn't want to drive 120 miles to work every day in this because the ride would be too hard, but it doesn't matter because it can't go 120 miles. On the highway, really stable. Yeah, just love it. Really happy with it. We've got a lot more videos with the Smart electric drive coming soon. Be sure to stay tuned for those, but just a quick behind the scenes update of what it's been like to live with a tiny electric lemon. As always, head over to tflcar.com for the latest and greatest in new car reviews.